Welcome back. I've got the coil spring compressor in place. If you've seen the previous videos, you'd have seen quite how high I've had to jack the car due to, to give clearance for the coil spring compressor. What I've done, the coil spring compressor, if you see the previous videos, it fits straight through the centre, and there's a hole in the bottom of the pan, and it goes straight through, and it sits on top of the house, whatever that house in there is called. Yeah, struggling to see my, but anyway, yeah, there's a house in here. And just at the back of it, you can get a nut washer, and I've actually found that one of the axle nuts, one of the wheel nuts, fits on. So, it's extremely strong. There's a lot of tension relying on the nut underneath here. Now, if you don't have one of these coil spring compressors, you can make do with lengths of threaded bar. I think it's 9/16 UNF, but you'd have to check that. Now what you do, you buy the bar. Ideally it'd be toughened steel, hardened steel, but I have done it with just normal mild steel in the past. But what you have to do, take the bar and cut it up into about 12-inch sections, and you undo one nut at a time, remove one bolt, and then thread in a piece of this bar, and then turn a nut and tighten it up, and you do that on all 6. So you don't have the coil spring in place, you have 6 pieces of bar sitting out with the nuts, and you can't just undo one at a time. You have to undo a tiny bit on this one, tiny bit on each one, and slowly the pan will slip down. It's under enormous tension. It's quite risky, but I did it with double nuts because it's possible that the nut would slip and it would rip the thread out of the nut. Because it's under huge pressure. But anyway, thankfully I'm not going to be using these bars, but I have done it in the past. It can be done, and I got away with it. But of course you're better with the proper tool if you've got it. Now the pan is got all of its nuts and bolts out. I'm just going to now unwind. Hopefully you'll be able to see. Let me just move the mirror so that I can see. I have to look in a mirror which is mounted behind the camera. So as long as I can see what's in the mirror, then the camera can see. Come on. Okay, here we go. Is that up or down? Which way? So, yeah, that makes it tighter. So I've also tightened the spring press slightly to take some of the tension off the nuts and bolts. Let me just move myself out of harm's way. I'm sure nothing's going to go wrong, but yeah, here we go. Let's have a look. Here we go. It's starting to drop now. You'll see a gap appear here as the pan drops off. It is a devil of a job. It's a devil of a job to do in a fully equipped garage. It really isn't the ideal job for the street. Oh yes, and another tip: when you're putting the thing back on, it's very difficult because as you turn the press, the plate itself, it swivels, and you need the holes to line up perfectly. So what I tend to do is take some of the threaded bar and thread it in. Probably 3 will be fine. One there, and one the other side, so that the pan's down here and it slides up the threaded bar purely as a guide. It makes the job a lot easier. Which way? That way. Here we go. Fingers crossed I'm going to get this off in one go. Yeah, it's quite a gap appearing at the back here now. But it's not. See, it's coming down at a funny angle. It's not releasing at all at the front. Let me just get a screwdriver and try and lever it slightly. There we go. Now then, one of these bolts broke, which is a considerable nuisance, but I'm sure I'll be able to. They just sheared off. Honestly, they were so tight. It took me about an hour to loosen the bolts, tighten and loosen, tighten, loosen, and yeah, it's quite a. Now then, I've got nothing. When that comes loose of this, wow. There we go. That's what I was expecting it to jump. If I could have put some of these pieces of bar in to guide it, but the pan's it's loose now, so we'll be okay. But you can imagine what a job this would be if I was going the other way and trying to get the pan to line up. If I'd have not put the put the guides in first. But here we go. I'm keeping my head as far away from it as possible. You know, most of the tension's released now, but there are several tons of pressure. You don't want your head or your face in the way of this. And also the car's at a very precarious angle on these pallets. A few people have commented on how high the car is on the pallets, but I'm afraid it's necessary. You know, I wouldn't fancy having it that high just wriggling about on axle stands. And the spring is moving a bit, but I'm sure we'll get this out. But the spring looks reasonably recent, if I'm honest with you. But there's not that much wear or damage. But then the car's hardly been used for years and years. But there was no evidence that the bolts have been out because they were so rusted in place. So I just can't work out why these springs look quite as good as they do. But wow, I need a breather. It's hard physical work, especially doing it really at arm's length. I'm just doing it with my body as far away as possible. I don't want any sort of mishaps. That's it, most of the tension's off now. There we go, there's not a lot of tension. Now with this spring off, it will make it very easy to remove all the other wishbones, and I've already taken this steering, what's it called now, tie rod, the steering tie rod out, so I can get access to the upper wishbone bush. Actually, it's the fulcrum shaft. I need to knock that out. But this is a job that, there we go, not a lot of tension left now. Let's just turn the camera down slightly. Yes, it's a horrible job this, but it has to be done. Here we go. What a job. There we go. But as I say to you, the reverse is somewhat more difficult. Here we go. That's it. It's got no tension in there whatsoever now. That's completely loose. And I have some packing pieces at the top which look to be nylon. Don't know about the bottom. Yeah, it's definitely got a couple of packing pieces at the top. Just lift the camera slightly, we might be able to see. Yeah, just can you see those? They're nylon, actually, like clear nylon. Not what I expected to see. So I must remember that they go at the top and not the bottom. But that's it now. That spring is ready to come out. There's no tension on that, and the spring is actually rusted into the pan at the bottom. It has been there longer than I thought. These springs are original. They're a bit of a mess on the other side to me. So they were rather clean on this side. They look quite good. No, these springs have not been out of this car. It is very rusty, and yeah, they're original 37-year-old springs. Wow, that's it. So now all I need to do is sort of thread my hand in, and it will take me a few minutes to unwind, and I'll be able to bring the whole thing out. I'm not going to film that. It's fairly obvious what I'm going to do. I've been scrunched up. I'm a bit short of breath. So that's another dangerous job out of the way.